On today's episode, we have Idelkys PHT success story. Welcome to the podcast helping you overcome your proximal hamstring tendinopathy. This podcast is designed to help you understand this condition, learn the most effective evidence-based treatments, and of course, bust the widespread misconceptions. My name is Brodie Sharp. I'm an online physiotherapist, recreational athlete, creator of the Run Smarter series, and a chronic proximal hamstring tendinopathy battler. Whether you are an athlete or not, this podcast will educate and empower you in taking the right steps to overcome this horrible condition. So let's give you the right knowledge along with practical takeaways in today's lesson. Haven't done one of these for a while, which I'm excited to bring you this story. I do have a couple of success stories in the pipes. Hopefully we can get recording and start giving you more, because I know you love listening to these success stories. Idelkys is no exception. I have worked with her in the past and she's had a long road of PHT, and looking forward to bringing you her story. It started during COVID, and she is a runner, but a relatively new runner. So I know a lot of people started running during COVID for fitness and while gyms were closed and all that sort of stuff. And if that's you, well, you might resonate a little bit more with Idelkys, and she shares a lot of insights and a lot of lessons that you're going to love. So let's take it away. Idelkys, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Brodie. I'm very excited about this.
Let's dive into your first onset of symptoms. Like cast us back to, well, how long ago was it when you first started getting symptoms?
Well, actually, I was trying to remember. It was during the COVID time for sure. I'm talking about ending the end of 2020 or beginning of 2021, because that was the time when I started exercising more frequently and with a lot of intensity as well. So I started feeling kind of the first symptoms, which I didn't know was PHT, of course, at some point during probably beginning of 2021. So it's been 3 years now.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yes. And what were the initial symptoms like? Can you cast your mind back and remember what that was like?
Yes, of course, because I've been living with this for a very long time, and I'm trying to figure it out what I did wrong and how. So it's kind of like I'm kind of reminding myself what was wrong. And I remember exactly one day I was doing like a single leg deadlift, and I remember like a very sharp pain in my right leg whilst doing this. And I was like, oh, something is kind of weird. That didn't happen before. But then I continued because I thought it was lack of stretch. All the mistakes people do, right? I say probably it's lack of stretch, probably I didn't warp enough, so I didn't realize what was going on, and I was pushing through that. I was probably if I stretch more, if I do yoga, whatsoever. And then when that was one day, I was having this sharp pain, continuously when I was exercising, and even when I was walking or sitting, because I work in front of the computer, so most of my day is sitting. But then one day I went for a run, and then I started having a very tight calf. So my calf were kind of a rock, and I was oh, that's so wrong. I cannot run. But then in the way I was warming up during that run, symptoms disappeared. So I could push through my 5K that day. And I was well, probably was lack of warming up. And I was totally wrong. The next day, I start having the same problem until I get to the point I was lumping all around the house or this kind of thing. So I decided to go to the physio and check what was going on.
So prior to doing that single leg deadlift where you initially felt that sharp sort of sensation, any warning bells or any symptoms prior to doing that?
I wouldn't say symptoms before doing that, but what I will say is like, as I mentioned before, during the COVID time, what I put all my focus was having some training. So I'm living in London. It was like a very small flat, so and we weren't allowed to go out like to do our normal life. So what I put all my energy was exercising and training. And what I think I did wrong at that time is doing all at once, like I start running, I start doing some kind of strength exercises, like sometimes even twice, 3 times a day. So I think I was putting too much on me at that point, like a trigger that moment, right? But no, before that moment, before the single leg deadlift, I didn't have any symptoms. What I think I did was like a putting too much stress on my body.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's always, looking back on hindsight, it's always easy to do. It's not until, these symptoms arise that you're like, okay, now I really know I've pushed myself. And so symptoms carried over into other activities, like you say, walking, you were sort of limping around the house, and then it carried over into running and all those other um, tasks. What happened when you went to the physio? What was that like?
Uh, the first thing the physio told me was like, you need to stop running. And I was like, I don't want to stop running. Like, I don't want to. And he said, like, well, you must, because you can. You have very, like, a very tight calf. Like, if you continue, you can provoke yourself like a stress fracture or something like that. And then when the physio was doing some kind of exercises with me, like hinging forward or doing squats, and I was like having this, like I was like, oh, it's painful. I cannot go lower, or when I'm hinging forward, this pain is very sharp. So the physio, I think he said like, probably you need to see the doctor, because this is something related with the hamstring. This is nothing to do with the calf. The pain you are talking about is nothing to do with the calf. So he refers me to the doctor at that point. And then the doctor, he did some MRIs, and he ruled out the PHT, which I didn't know that was a thing. Can you even imagine, I'm not in that area of expertise. So when they start talking about you have a tendinopathy or something, I was like, what you're talking about, I don't know what was going on. And I like to know what is going on with my body, because I need to figure it out. So the physio refers me to the doctor. The doctor did some tests, the MRI, and then rule out that was PHT. But if I'm honest with you, that happened at least 6-7 months after I have the first symptom. So I waited so long to go to the physio and figure it out what was going on wrong with me.
Okay. So the actual scans themselves came back clear, saying you don't have any issues with the tendon?
Do you mean at the beginning?
You said that the scans ruled out PHT. Does that mean that it wasn't there?
No, sorry. What I mean is like the doctor figured it out
Gotcha.
From the scan, from the MRI, that was the PHT.
Yes.
And that was the first time I heard the terminology, and I was like, what is PHT? So he started explaining to me that I had like a kind of like a marrow between the bone and the tendon, just in the attachment, just beneath my glute. And I remember that was really, I remember because it was like a very sharp pain. So everything in my head started like coming together, okay, that makes sense, because if it is something going on between the tendon and the bone, and it's just beneath my glute, it's like then I figured it out, when I'm sitting, of course that's painful. When I'm walking, or when I'm doing some kind of when I'm pulling, right, that area. So I kind of start, but no, from the scan, the doctor figured it out that was the PHT at that point.
Okay. So if this is 6 months down the track, Had the calf itself been persisting throughout that time as well, or was it only the sit bone pain that remained?
The sit bone pain was the one that remained, because with the calf, the physio did some kind of like a massage, and he also some kind of like leg raises and calf raises as well. So the calf was well, but just imagine like I stopped running, right? Like I listened to them and say like well, if they are asking me to stop running, I stopped running. So I did. Which didn't aggravate any symptoms, right? But the sharp pain was there. The sharp pain was there, like when I was sitting. I remember those days, like even doing my normal, my daily to daily life, like getting into the bath, like just the fact of moving my leg, like pulling that hamstring to do some kind of exercises. In my day to day, it was kind of painful. Like I didn't want to wear heels, I didn't want to go out, and I was kind of frustrated because I thought like, oh, I will never will be able to do any exercises at all again in my life. And I was between frustrated, sad, and I can say stubborn as well, because I couldn't accept the fact like I wasn't able to do anything.
It can be easy to think that way, especially when you've stopped running and you might, or like stopped doing, certain exercises that might provoke pain, but then pain still persists and carries over into everyday life, lifting your legs, sitting, and those sorts of things. So it can be very understandable to come to that conclusion that I'm doing everything, I'm pulling back, yet symptoms remain. But did the doctor suggest anything when it came to getting the scans, what you can do for treatment, anything along those lines?
Yes, he suggested almost everything. Like first thing he suggested was the shockwave therapy, which again I didn't know anything about. So I tried to look. It's like he said like oh, we can go this path and we can see the shockwave is kind of like a new treatment. It's very effective, and probably you will see some kind of like a progress, right? And I was like, okay, why not? Like, he's the doctor, he's the specialist. He suggested me to do something, so let's go through that. One thing, like I realized, they never send me strength exercises with weight, right? Like we were working, the physio and the doctor, we were working all together, and the physio just was telling me, oh, you need to do glute bridges, or you need to do calf raises, or you need to do some kind of like a pulling with a band my leg,
like stretches,
for stretches or something like that. But they never recommended me to do strength training at all. And I was asking them like I need to do something, like I cannot stay at home just like coming from like a very active life, stay at home sitting just doing like a 3 sets of 10 glute bridges. That's not enough for me. And they say like well, you have to. So I listened to them, so I stopped almost every single thing I was doing. And then the doctor said, let's go for the shockwave. During the shockwave treatment, you can do anything, like just walk if you need to walk, but try to have as much rest as you can. So we went for 6 sessions of shockwave. The first 3 sessions was 1 week apart from each other, and then he started spreading out like every 3 weeks, the other 3, the rest. And I didn't see any improvement at all. And I was telling him like I don't know what is going on, but you're telling me like this is going to fix the problem or help to improve the symptoms, and I feel exactly the same. And he said like well, probably because your injury is like something long, like we didn't take it, like we didn't find out at the very beginning, it's taking longer. And I was like okay, that's fine. And then after the 6 sessions, I told him this is not working, and then he suggested me going for the steroid injection, which I had it. So we went shockwave, we went for the steroid injections, and with that injection, he told me, like, you need to stop doing absolutely everything, not even the glute bridges, for at least 1 month and a half. And that drove me crazy, Brody. I was like, how can I? I need to take stairs. I don't have lift in my building, so I need to take the stairs. So for 1 week and a half, I was working from home, not even going to the office. And we are talking 2022, kind of. So it's all the stuff since I went to the doctor until I get the steroid injection was almost 1 year, 18 months, kind of. And that's it, it's the steroid injections, it was just one. It helped, of course it helped. I wasn't doing any exercises, and I have the steroid working in the area, so I didn't have any pain. It was kind of having this area drugged. And then I saw this is not right, because in the way I start putting a little bit of exercises bit by bit, the pain was coming, and I was so scared to get that pain coming again back. I was pulling myself back so many times, I want to go for a run, and when I go for a run, after 2 minutes, I was I cannot do this. And then I was pulling back and I wasn't doing anything. And that's why I found you, because I want to understand what was going on with me. I say, I'm not the only one in the world feeling this way, right? So I went online and I started looking PHT, Proximal Hamstring Tendinopathy, and I started looking, and that's when I found you, and I started listening to your podcast, the specific podcast you have for Proximal Hamstring, and I started listening to the other success stories and all the information you have in there, and say okay, symptoms are quite similar, procedures were quite similar, and the only thing I was missing was the strength. And that's why I wanted to have the chat with you at the very, very beginning, when we have our very first chat. Because I want to understand from other, a kind of looking for a second opinion, right? What was going on.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the interventions that were proposed are unfortunately completely backwards. If someone was presenting with a tendon issue, we would hope and expect that the first course of treatment is some sort of loading to see what the response is like, trying to find the right loading exercises to preserve strength, trying to find what sort of level of fitness you can maintain, trying to find all those sorts of things. But unfortunately, it's gone from rest to shockwave, more rest to, corticosteroid injections, to more rest, which does several things. It deconditions your body, not only for the hamstring, but for the rest of your body as well, which is the unfortunate thing. But like you've explained as well, mentally, you want to be exercising, you want to try and find some sort of alternative or things to keep active, which is very good for mental health and helps recovery. But that's not happening either, because they're telling you to pull back, and then with that pulling back, you've sort of developed this fear of exercise as well. So even you trying to reintroduce exercise and feeling a little bit of pain and pulling back is left you in this particular state. So it's unfortunate that the medical system and the healthcare systems kind of let you down in that sense. But glad that you found the podcast and started finding the right information. Can you recall our first call and what that was like? And was there any particular revelations there?
Yeah, I remember the first thing you asked me was if I was doing any load exercises with weights, and I say no, I'm doing nothing. And your face was how come? And I was like, it's like I remember exactly when you asked me like which kind of exercises strength you are doing with and which way, and I was like, I'm doing none and no way at all. I'm not going to the gym. So it was kind of a click in my head saying like probably what I was doing until now wasn't the right thing to do. Probably I wasn't in the right hands, and I'm not blaming them, right? Like I'm not blaming what they are doing. What I'm saying is like probably they didn't know how to treat me or how to put me in a situation where I could move forward and getting rid of the injury, right? Like because what I feel at the moment is like it's taking so long. I'm not my 100%, right? Like and I remember I was asking you, and I don't know if you recall this, like should I need to learn how to live with this? Like because that was always my question. Like I'm not getting better. Should I need to learn how to live with this discomfort or pain and push forward and continue my life? And everyone was saying like no, you shouldn't, like you should go back and you should be fine, like you shouldn't be feeling pain. But yeah, I remember from that call like something clicked inside of my head saying like I need to start doing more strength, which to be honest I didn't realize until that point that like a strength and running are like a hand by hand and they have to go together. I probably need to mention, because I know in this podcast there are like a lot of people like running, and they are very very good athletes and running, right? Like I started running in 2020, so I didn't have like a background of being fit or being exercising every day, and it's kind of like all when you start like researching and you say like probably I was doing wrong, probably I'm not meant for running. And I remember I asked you that as well, like probably I'm not meant for running, probably I'm not the person who I need to find another kind of like a exercise and not running. And you say no, everyone can run.
I haven't yet found someone who isn't like built for running, who I've never said like, you're not built for running, maybe you should try something else. I'm yet to come across a person like that.
But yeah, I say like I remember listening to your podcast, and then I remember when you were with your book as well, like what is pain, like kind of understanding my body. It was very very important and change like a mind change for me. Because I started looking more after myself and being something like I've been lacking of is patience, and I think almost every human is lack of patience. And this is something like I've learned a lot, not because I want to, just because I have to.
Can I ask, like, what was the initial first steps for you? Like when we started loading and you started heading in this new direction, can you recall what the exercises were, like what your routine was like? What was that?
Yes. We start the first thing the two of us did was like you plan from me some exercises like a deadlift. I remember like no full motion deadlift, but like we start progressing the movement with some weight. We start also increasing the weight. Like we start with 5K kettle dumbbells, and then we start in the way I was feeling better and stronger, and I could hold more weight. We start increasing that, and then it was one point, like you say, like probably the range of movement should be a little bit more. So we start doing deadlift for sure, calf raises as well with weights. crab walks. We did a lot of crab walks and Bulgarian splits as well, with some weights. I remember those were kind of the first exercises we did, and then we start progressively increasing the weight and then the range of movement. And at the same time, we were mixing a little bit with walk and run, because I wanted to start running. And then you wanted to figure it out, like how the strength and my running were together. And then we start doing we start increasing, okay, you're going to run 2 minutes, walk 1, and then we start increasing from there in time. Because if I don't recall wrong, that was the time when you start putting in your YouTube channel how to run the 5K from zero, and I was like, I will give it a go. I want to run again. I will give it a go. So, and I had to tell myself, the only thing is that you need to trust the process. So someone with experience and the knowledge is putting that outside for you. You don't rush, and you need to start doing the trusting other people suggestions. So that's what I did, and that's what we did together. And it went really well. Actually, we start increasing the weight. We start increasing also the exercises and the running.
Can you recall, when we started doing deadlifts, how, we started with a reduced range of movement? Can you recall what range of movement it was? If someone's listening and trying to picture it, how far down your hands would go down to your thighs, would it go to the knee or past the knee? What would that look like?
It was until the knee. My hands were just
above the knee,
going above the knee. Yeah, that's it. That was the very, very first exercises we did, and with 5K key dumbbell.
I say that that would be, I would classify that 1/4 range of movement, and I think the rationale at that stage being, okay, let's just load it up somewhere, but let's not risk irritating it with increasing the range of movement. So let's start with a really, really low weight, get heavier in that range before then sort of thinking about how we can integrate some more range of movement. The calf raises were just mainly addressing the history of the calf symptoms, and so wasn't necessarily related to the PHT. And the resistance band sidestepping crab walks was mainly just an adjunct, just to work the glutes, which we thought was important at the time. And I think the running, the walk running at the time, like you say, with the YouTube, it was actually pretty good timing, because I created a playlist of, almost like a couch to 5K playlist program to follow, and you just decide to follow that. So that was in pretty good timing in that sense. Can you recall a time when you started noticing an improvement in symptoms or an improvement in strength? How long did that take?
I think it took about 1 month when I start having, I will say 3 weeks, 1 month, when I was starting increasing the weight and doing the deadlift with not that the level of pain wasn't that bad as the very beginning. So it took about between 3 weeks and 1 month where I was doing the deadlift with the dumbbell and running almost pain-free. Gotcha. From the hamstring side.
Yep. Were you seeing any carryover in terms of improving your sitting as well, and improving stepping up or other day-to-day tasks?
Yes, I was able to take the stairs to get to my flat without pain, which was a huge thing. And I stopped having the problem when I'm sitting in front of the computer when I'm working. So that was really comforting for me, because yes, sometimes you say like, yes, I cannot exercise, or what, how bad is like, oh, this kind of like, you start feeling. But then when these kind of things start affecting your daily life, like I cannot take the stairs, I cannot sit without any pain or without moving every 3 minutes because I cannot stay in the same position all the time. So when you start seeing the improvement in your daily small things like you have in your daily life, is when you start getting, oh, this is working and I don't have to do this anymore. I remember as well something you asked me, and it was like when running, reducing the cadence.
Yep. Cadence, yeah.
The cadence, yeah. Because you were kind of like kind of worried if I was like overstriding or something like that, and that might upset the hamstring. So one technique you suggested was like finding some songs and listen to some with like a smaller cadence, and also you when you were checking how the form when I'm running, you realize like I was like a heel striking and I should be changing that a little bit more. So we were working on that to try to switch from the heel striking into the like a middle foot striking. And I think all of that all together made like a huge difference, because I was changing the way I was running. I was trying to, as I mentioned before, be patient. For running, I don't need to be fast or I don't need to be overstriding. What I just need is to be running pain-free and without any injury.
Yeah.
And that's what I was mentioned with patience and trusting the process.
Probably worth mentioning as well, like I think I recall reviewing your running videos, like watching you running and seeing that the cadence was particularly low. And we were also managing like issues with your shins. And when looking at your heel strike, it seemed like the toes were pointed quite high up upon impact. And so we were kind of just coming up with ways of adjusting that, knowing that, you haven't been running for that long at that stage. You're a relatively new runner and sort of trying to develop some better motor patterns and better qualities. And it seems like the cadence fixed or like sort of made an adjustment in the right direction for that sense. So yeah, I usually recommend finding a Spotify playlist or something that has a certain beats per minute. It could be 170 or something, and then just running to the beat. So that seemed to work quite well for you. So good adjustments there. Can you, at the point of things starting to improve, probably hard to recall, but do you know how heavy the deadlifts were, how heavy they were getting that you were holding on to?
Yes, I do, because I remember we went to the point like at the deadlift, I was doing the full range of movement with about like a 20-25K. That's when we moved from 5K to 25K and the full range of movement. That was the progression, what we did with the deadlift.
Yeah.
And then I remember as well, we were doing like a front squats, which helped us as well with some dumbbells.
Yeah. I'm just pulling up the conversions now for those who don't do kilograms, but it's about 55 pounds is 25 kilograms. So that just gives people some sort of reference and some idea as to how well you progressed through the deadlifts and just paying attention to symptoms along the way. Did you have, like when you were up at that stage, were you getting symptoms during the deadlift or after the deadlift, or what were you using as like a guide to know if it's okay or not?
Yeah, the funny thing is like you asked me to record the level of pain before, during, and after. And my recovery was quite well after the exercise. And I was feeling the sharp pain just whilst doing the exercise. So at the beginning, when we start working together, I did have the pain all the time. And then when we start doing the exercises and we start increasing the the amount of reps and the range of movement and the weight, the pulling, that pulling, like I felt just beneath my glute, where just in the moment like I was hinging forward doing the deadlift. So the moment I came back to neutral position, I didn't have any pain at all.
Symptoms themselves, like, we want to look at pain versus like sort of what's happening over the long-term trend, because if you didn't encounter this information about acceptable pain levels and followed the advice of like the doctor or that previous physio that said, oh no, don't do that, just rest and it should settle down, or don't do exercises that cause pain, um, pulling back, we would expect, well, we would hope things would get better. But like you said, you went 12, 18 months of resting and symptoms not really improving, and sitting still being annoying, and lifting your leg and running and all those sorts of attempts still being painful. So clearly something isn't working. Clearly rest isn't the answer for you. And that's clearly outlined. But then doing some deadlifts that do cause a little bit of discomfort, but then in the long term, seeing those improvements, seeing it impact your running, seeing it positively impact your sitting, seeing it positively impact your deadlifts. Like your deadlifts get heavier and heavier, but easier and easier. And so, um, sort of encouraging people that a little bit of discomfort, especially when you do a deadlift, if people are shy to work through a range. They get to a certain point of their deadlift where it starts to become a bit painful in the high hamstring area, and they just fall short of that, and then they come back up. But I usually encourage just to lean into that, go through a little bit of discomfort through the deadlift as long as it's nice and slow, and then come back up and then see what's like afterwards. Because in your particular case, if it's painful while doing that hinging pattern, but then when you come up, it goes away. And then when you stop doing that exercise and, for an hour or two afterwards, if there's no irritation, then it's relatively safe to do. And then again, falling back to the long-term trend, which means that symptoms are improving week by week, month by month, 6 months by 6 months. Obviously, we're managing that particular injury well. So some good key little lessons to add there. Anything that you want to comment on with that?
Yeah, I would like to say like for everyone listening to this is like I think what one thing I did wrong as well was, it's not wrong. I don't think it's wrong. Sorry, it's like it's the mental side, right? Like the mental side is very important, because as I mentioned, I was so scared to get my injury back. Like I was pulling back myself every single time. Like I was going for a run, I have a little bit of pain, I just stop it, and because I didn't want the injury to come back. But then what I realized at some point, and it doesn't come with time. It comes with time, right? Like it comes with time. It's like realizing like you run, you are coming from injury, your injury is not fully recovered, and then you have the pain level, but the pain level have to be manageable, and you say like, well, I can deal with that. And then I know when I stop running my 5K, my 3K, it doesn't matter how long I'm running, when I finish my run, I'm coming back, I'm doing my cool down, then how I feel after that, I don't have pain, so it's good to go. It's like you need to continue mixing strength and running. It's very important. I know some people hate strength, other people don't, but strength is so important, like a rehab, and strength is so important to help you with everything when you're running. So I just want to highlight the mix of the two.
Yeah.
I'm not a lover of weight, of strength exercises myself, but it is what it is. I want to run, so I have to do it, and I do it consciously.
It's been a while since we started working together. Has your progress had any hiccups, any setbacks, any flare-ups, anything like that along the way?
I did have a flare-ups like almost by the end of last year, kind of. But I think it was because I was so stressed at work, and I couldn't do my normal routine for strength. So I normally do like a 1 day full body, 1 day like a lower body, and focusing on deadlift, focusing on squats, and focusing on Bulgarian split squats, which I hated, but they are quite good as well. And yeah, I kind of like wasn't doing my routine as I did before. So I realized when I stopped for a few weeks not doing what I used to do for running, I start having like the pain in my hamstring. This time wasn't the sharp pain, but it was more in the belly of the hamstring. So the belly of my hamstring was pulling, and I was like, I need to come back to the gym. I need to do this. So I came, and again, be patient. I wasn't blaming myself, like, it's life. I'm busy at work. I couldn't do it, but now I realize this is wrong. So I need to do some like 15 minutes, 20, 10. But I'm doing like every other day. I'm doing kind of like something for at least for my legs, and mainly for my hamstring.
Can you talk through like your current weekly structure? Like, what do you have a schedule thereabouts about what days you're running, what strength exercise you're doing? You mentioned the deadlifts and the split squats. What's the dosage like? How heavy are you lifting at the moment?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, right now, I'm having like from the 7 day of the week, 1 day fully rest, which I'm normally do my walk, or some kind of very light yoga at home, just for winding up my body and my mind. The rest of the week, I'm doing 3 days a week. 3 days a week, I do a strength. 1 day I do full body strength, like abs and lower body, a little bit of upper body. 1 day I do lower body, just lower body. As I mentioned, it can be deadlift, it can be squats as well. Bulgarian split squats. Those are the main I'm doing with the legs. There is 1 day of the week I'm doing kind of rehab, so I'm doing exercises specifically for the hamstring, like some kind with the bands, or there is this app like a Strava give you, like it's called Recover, and they give you a specific rehab exercises for the hamstring. So I'm doing that like 1 day a week, normally on Fridays, and then I'm having like 4 days a week running. 2 days a week. Out of the 4 runs, 2 of them are like a very easy running, like some 2 running like 60 minutes, 1 hour and a half running, but very, very easy, like the way like I can talk whilst I'm running, or I can think, or the other 2 days they are shorter, but it's more mixing speed sessions with recovery, just kind of triggering the speed stuff, and so far it's working fine.
Excellent. The split squats, what are your sets, reps, and weights that you're doing at the moment?
With the split squats, I'm doing like between 3 and 4 sets of 10, 15 ish leg,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm using like 2 dumbbell of 10K, so in total 20K. But
Excellent. And the deadlifts?
and the deadlift, I'm doing exactly like 4 sets of kind of between 15 and 20 reps, and I'm like 25K at the moment.
Well done. Yeah, I would generally have the preference of being lower reps and higher weight, because 3 by 15 to 20 is quite a lot of reps. So well done for keeping up with those. The running themselves, it looks like you're doing very well. Even introducing some speed 2 days per week is great. And overall, what are your week by week, day to day symptoms like?
Yeah, the hamstring, the hamstring, the right hamstring, as I mentioned before, is not at it's 100% now, but it's getting much better, and I feel it. It complains a little bit when I'm exercising, right? Like when I'm running, when I'm doing the speed sessions, it doesn't like it, and it says like a slow down or. But because they are very short, it's kind of like a where I'm not upsetting it. Like a is it complains, but then I give them enough rest to come back to initial kind of symptoms, right? Uh, I won't say like I'm perfect because I'm not. I'm still having some kind of my hamstring is still complaining. Sometimes it's the belly of my hamstring, like I is pulling from the glute to the knee. Other times can be like this very little sharp pain, depending which exercise I'm doing. If I'm doing something I'm like a hinging forward too much, or if I'm stretching too much the area, it's kind of like I'm here and I'm not totally fine. So it kind of like give me some signs. So I slow down and say like okay, that's fine. I cannot hing that forward where I hing, but not that low. So this kind of stuff is like you start learning how to live with that, not accepting it, but working on that, because I've seen the progress. I've seen like how I was at the beginning on 2021. I've seen how I was at the beginning of 2023 and how I am now. Like in the last few months, I've been doing like so far I've done 5 half marathons, and I'm pretty happy with my half marathon because I've been running pain free. And after I finish the marathon, everything is fine. Like I'm able to continue my routine. Like I did a half marathon last Sunday, and today I'm perfect. Like I went yesterday for a run. I'm going today for my run. So uh, I I see how I'm progressing, and I am trusting. Like at some point in time, it
Yeah.
will be again back.
And it's a good example of a lot of clients ask me, like, how long will I have this for? How long until it goes away? When will I be running symptom free? And my answer is kind of like, it's not definitive. It's like, well, when we're running, maybe you have like a 1 out of 10 symptoms during the run. Maybe it's a one for a couple of hours afterwards, and then it's back to baseline or back to symptom free afterwards. You could live with that. If we get you from running, say, your current 20 minutes is your adaptation zone, then you're running marathons, but you're running marathons with a 1 out of 10 pain, and then there's no irritation afterwards. Would you live with that? And a lot of people would definitely, take that on board and say, yeah, I'd be very happy with that. But we still want to continue bettering our standards. Like I would say for you, very good with what you're currently accomplishing. But if there's still symptoms with speed work, still some symptoms with longer runs or like afterwards, we still want to continue seeing improvements month by month. We don't want to just live with mild symptoms every time you push yourself, but continuing to build upon your speed work or fostering that adaptation and making sure those progressions are sensible should be the goal. And next year, if you're running even faster, running even further with even less symptoms, by all means, that means we're still heading in the right direction. So um, people say, but what about symptom free? And I'll say, well, I've had PHT before and I'm relatively symptom free for the last, 4 or 5 years. However, if I was to run a really fast marathon tomorrow without any preparation, I would probably expect it to come back. And so it's all about sort of, yes, the standards should be symptom free, but if you do the wrong things, then we expect there to be some setbacks. And I think where you find yourself now, like you say, you're not 100%, but where you find yourself now is on a really good trend and a really good pattern. And like you say, you're smiling when you're talking about your half marathons. You're in a better mental state. You're doing better fitness wise and strength wise. And so it's really good to see. Obviously, this is a better path than what you're previously finding yourself in.
Yeah, I think what is very important, and I truly get the fact, like, sometimes when you are injured, you don't want to listen to this because it's frustrating. I've been in that position. It's frustrating, but you need to be patient and you need to listen to your body. I know this is what everyone says when you are injured, but it's true. Like, if I'm thinking now what I would have done better in the past, is like a first thing, don't push through my injury. First symptom, I will have gone to the doctor first thing ever, or look how should I get better on this. Second thing is like knowing my limits, right? Like I know there is a limit where what I can achieve or what I cannot achieve at this moment in time, and work on that. I remember when you asked me, I want to do a 10K under 60 seconds. Did I? No, the first time I ran my 10K when we started working together, I wasn't under 60 minutes. I was like a 102 or something like that. And I was pretty happy because I ran pain-free this 1 minute, like a 1 hour 02 minutes, right? And that's the achievement for me. That's my win. Like I ran it. Probably not what I wanted at the very, very beginning, but I did it, and I did it pain-free, and I was smiling the whole time. And I remember that race, this is my poof. I remember that race in London, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was so happy, Brody. Happy like a kid. But yeah, it's like having patience and try to give your enough time to heal. I remember you as well, like a lot of kind of telling me to have like enough rest, to eat properly as well, because all that like a kind of affect the way you are feeling about your injury. Having like your 8 hours of sleep, 6 hours, I don't know, but what feels for you the best, to have the enough time to rest and recover your body.
Yeah. Well said. I think just like you say, knowing your limits and, abiding by certain symptoms and pain rules and all that sort of stuff, letting that guide your training, I think that's very sensible. And as we wrap up here, any other final tips or takeaways or bits of advice for people who have PHT and are listening to this episode?
Do strength exercises. Do strength and start increasing your weight. Don't be afraid of having like a level of pain while doing the exercise, and trust the process. I think that's the most important takeaways that I can give to anyone if they were in the same situation as I was.
Well said. I'm very happy we could do this. Very happy we found a time and to share your story, because it's a great one. It's a lot of lessons in here, some frustrating ones initially, but I'm glad to see you're on the right track. I'm glad to see what you've been able to accomplish. Those half marathons are a fantastic goal and a fantastic achievement. And this story is going to really help a lot of people. So thanks for coming on and sharing.
Thank you so much, Brody. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story to everyone, like I listen to the podcast. I'm really happy we are doing this. I think it's important also for me to see where I was, where I am at the moment, and where I want to be and how I can get there. So having this time for reflecting while I was looking into the questions and having the time to think, because we are living our life and we don't sit and think what was going on in the past. But now, when I'm thinking where I was in 2020, where I am right now, I'm more than happy with the process. And yeah, of course I would have done things differently, but wasn't the case, right? But if I can share that with anyone, and this kind of message can get there, I will say just trust the process and do strength. Please, please, please.
Good message. All right. Thanks again, Idelkys.
Thank you, Brody. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks once again for listening and taking control of your rehab. If you are a runner and love learning through the podcast format, then go ahead and check out the Run Smarter podcast, hosted by me. I'll include the link along with all the other links mentioned today in the show notes. So open up your device, click on the show description, and all the links will be there waiting for you. Congratulations on paving your way forward towards an empowering, pain-free future. And remember, knowledge is power.